Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Clinically Pressed. We have Leah Misch with us today, and Leah has a fantastic story. If you're in the La Crosse area, there's odds are you've probably heard of Leah in some capacity. She's just done a ton of stuff in the health and fitness world, but also is really big into motorcycling, done a lot of cross-country trips. Indian motorcycle is her go-to. It's been a really incredible story. It was great to sit down with her. I've kind of run into Leah back and forth over the past couple of years. AJ and I starting out with some total athletic therapy stuff. Leah was the only person to come to the talk that we never actually gave at a fitness expo. It just didn't work out how we wanted it to, but we've been affiliated with Leah for a while, but it was great to get to sit down with her, hear her story. So inspiring just for what she was able to personally overcome, and then also what she does now in terms of giving back to more and more people, and just making that the focus of her life and what she does and traveling around and doing it. So again, this is just a fun episode, just something very different than what we usually get to experience in terms of talking performance or anything like that. But again, highly recommend checking this one out. Great story. You'll definitely take something away with it. With that, keep tuning in to our functional progression series that we've got out. We got some other things coming up. Look for some new things coming out from us, a couple new courses in the works, and some other big series that we got going on. So with that, we leave you with our conversation with Leah Misch.
Simple. Good luck.
That's why we've kind of messed with it. We added the question at the end, in the world of what you do, how would you make it complicated simple? And I think the last episode we put out, the guy had the best one. He's a runner, like a professional runner, and he goes, one foot in front of the other. Oh. And I was just like, oh. I mean, we were all like, whoa, that was it right there.
Which is funny. Take the first step is what I just
perfect.
Wrote.
No, there you go. That's a perfect thing for it. So I like that. So, on this episode of Clinically Pressed, we're here with Leah Misch.
Misch,
okay,
yes.
I want to make sure I said that right, and probably should have checked that before. Fun backstory on how I and AJ met Leah back at Granddad's Expo 2 years ago. We were going to give this big talk, had it all set up, but nobody knew about it except for apparently Kyle.
I did.
I was excited about it.
I was very excited.
And Leah, who came up and asked about it after we had decided that we weren't going to do it because nobody was going to sit down. So yeah, that was our first introduction to Leah, and we ended up doing a blog post with a link up on it about just eating and preparing for races. Leah has been very big into running for quite a while now, I would say.
7 years.
7 years, that's plenty long. But great backstory on how she got into running, which we'll let her kind of get into and just kind of go from there. I don't want to take too much of the story, so
yes,
take it away.
I was really excited for that presentation too. It was interesting because right before that, I had the nutrition and the running is important. I was running a marathon down in Alabama and had thrown up on the marathon. Nutrition would have been important to know before that. It was just why I was excited to listen to you guys.
For sure.
So a little bit on my backstory. I first started looking at my health and making health changes 10 years ago. Back in 2010, which would be 7 years ago.
Yes.
I, at that time, was considered morbidly obese. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, was pre-diabetic. And was just really kind of like looking to make some changes in my health and my lifestyle. So why I decided to make those changes was for the health reasons, and I am a nurse. And so now I do more with the nurse health coaching, but it was through some of my personal journey, along with the career move that was interesting in the process. So I first started back in 2010 a team called You Go Girl. It was a community fitness challenge through Gunderson Lutheran's Minutes in Motion.
Okay.
And the goal was like to be active for 30 minutes a day. And I remember at that time thinking, who has time to be 30 minutes active for 30 minutes a day? Like, I don't even have time to go for a walk for 10 minutes. This is crazy. When I was in college, I was working 3 jobs and going to school all at the same time. So it was like, I really didn't have time to focus on health and nutrition. But through the years following that, I could see the effects that it was playing on my health at a young age. So being 22, 23, pre-diabetic, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, decided to take things into my own hands and try to make some changes. So put together that team and got together some friends and family in the local area and called us You Go Girl for the Minutes of Motion challenge. And it was a 6-week physical activity challenge. So over the course of the next 6 weeks, my goal was to do 30 minutes of activity a day. And then also, check in with other people and see how they're doing. So it was kind of a support thing that I think was really helpful in that. I put together a list called my bucket list. Have you heard of the bucket list? I should show you the bucket list.
Of your bucket list?
My bucket list,
no,
yeah.
I have not.
Yeah. All right.
This should
I'm
be
excited
good.
to see
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
I brought it with me. So this thing has been all over the country.
Nice. I should do one of those.
But I'm in the bucket list. So this is my quote book here in the beginning, or all things that are like meaningful quotes that I come across.
Yeah.
But in the back of it is my bucket list. And this has been, uttered and torn.
There you go.
Got
I
good
got one that
news.
doesn't quite look like that, but it's...
Do you have it written down?
Oh, not the bucket list. I'm just saying one of the notebook
Quotes.
things, yeah.
You should make the bucket list. I always encourage people to do that. But at that time, when I was looking at my life and making changes, I decided to make this bucket list and put down goals of things that I wanted for myself. I was kind of in this turning point of trying to better my life after some situations.
So did you put this together all at once?
I put a lot of it together, or I put some of it together at once, and then along the years I've added to it, obviously.
Oh, wow.
But it first was started with a goal, and that was to run a marathon. And at that time I didn't know there was a difference between a 5K and a marathon. So I signed up for the fitness festival. It was the St. Clair's Health Marathon.
Okay.
It was called something differently back in the day, but now it's the fitness festival. And I remember signing up for my first 5K there, and I chose that one because the Gunderson Lutheran's Minutes of Motion had led up to that fitness, the run. And then the money from there went to help the St. Clair's Health Mission, which I had volunteered a lot for when I was back in college, and then after college. So love St. Clair's and Joni and Sandy over there, but I knew it went for a good cause, and it was going to keep me, going as far as having a goal and having an endpoint, kind of like something to look forward to. So over those 6 weeks, I trained trying to do that 3.1 mile run, and I hadn't even ran all that distance fully. I had walk, and so I showed up on race day not ever knowing anything about running. And got to the start line and was like, what was I thinking? I don't know anybody here. It was interesting. But went out and got halfway through the run and was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can do this. And then I was like, wait, I'm starting to get tired. Why did I think that this was a good idea? What was I thinking?
That's how I felt in the only half marathon I ran.
Really?
Oh, partway through, I was just like, what? My headphones died, so I couldn't even listen to anything. Girlfriend's running along, just chilling. I'm just trying to think of something to think about. But anyhow, I digress.
Yeah, so got halfway through and was kind of like, I want to stop. I want to give up. It's too hard. I'm going to be the last person finishing. What was I thinking? This is embarrassing. And then I just kind of put it in perspective of the reason why. Why was I doing that? Why was I there that day? And the reason was because it was a goal that I had set for myself. It wasn't because I was trying to get first place, or it wasn't because I was trying to run and accomplish anything. It was just to finish the race. So I kept going, one foot in front of the other, and continued on and slowed down. So that's always key. If you're like, I want to give up, just step back for a second and slow down a little bit, but keep going forward. And I kept going, and I remember crossing the finish line to that first 5K and feeling like, oh my gosh, like I did it. Like I ran the whole thing, and I ran it, and I didn't even stop. Like, oh. And so that next week I was going around telling people, because I didn't know there was a difference between a marathon and a 5K. True story. I was like, you guys, I ran a marathon. They're like, I thought a race was a marathon. They're like, you ran a marathon? Because at that time I was still pretty heavy. Yeah, I did. I didn't even stop the whole way. I ran it, didn't even stop. It was awesome. Didn't think I could ever do it.
Nice.
And then they're like, you ran 26.2 miles? I was like, no, people run that far for fun?
Yeah, right.
Why? And so that's kind of where it sparked the interest of, gosh, I wonder if I could do a marathon sometime. So I was like 23 when I did my first 5K. So then I set a goal on here to do my first marathon when I was 26 miles when I was 26 years old. So it took a lot of training for that. But kind of to go back to that year that was life-changing was the 2010. Finished that first 5K, achieved something I never thought I could do, was really like motivated and in running and like all these health changes, like being more active, gave me more energy, having better energy, like was able to in making like health choices. Like when I'd be more active, I wanted to eat healthier. When I was eating healthier, I had more energy to be more active. So that was kind of interesting, like that turning point. But later on in 2010, in August, I was in an accident on the motorcycle, and I broke my back. I broke T4, 5, 6, and 7, and then punctured my lung, broke some ribs. I had some really artistic road rash. So it was kind of laid up for a long time, and it was kind of, I think, a lot of people ask, like, what keeps you running or what keeps you motivated? It's like, I almost lost the ability to run. Like, I could very well be paralyzed from the waist down or the chest down, or not even be here. So I think, that's something that's kind of like on those days that you are like, I don't really want to do anything. It's like it gives you perspective.
For sure.
And I remember after that there's the story time. You ready for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can totally cut it off.
No.
But yeah, so it was like that year of 2010, I had been in the accident, almost lost the ability to run, even had a hard time in like recovering. Like it was scary. I didn't know. I remember going into shock, which was really weird. It was super, super cold. But in the recovery part of that, I had gone and stayed with my mom for a little bit, and then ended up going back home and was dating a guy at this time, and his mom had invited me for Thanksgiving, and I was kind of like going through this like, oh, like life is really hard. I don't know how I'm going to pay my medical bills. I don't know how I'm going to get through the day without being in complete pain. I don't know what I'm going to do kind of in the future, like in stuff for work because of the injury. So it was just a hard time, and like I was just really feeling sorry for myself at that time. And then my boyfriend at that time I was supposed to go to Thanksgiving Day, and I remember making this like Jello salad for it, and it was really hard to make because like you're in a lot of pain with your back, and doing anything was hard. Like pulling up your pants was hard. Like opening any doors was hard. Like it's
I can't imagine.
And it gets easier with time. But I remember he called me that day on Thanksgiving Day and said, we'll meet up later. He wanted to go hunting. He didn't tell me that till afterwards, but he's like, you go to your family thing and I'll go to mine, and then we can meet up later and spend Thanksgiving together. So I was like, screw that. I'm like, I'm going to go spend Thanksgiving with, somebody that wants to spend Thanksgiving together instead of like, I made that Jello salad. I gave it to him, or to his mom, and then ended up driving back towards downtown La Crosse and was at by the La Crosse Center. I knew that they had the Thanksgiving Day celebration where they just invited people in the community to celebrate Thanksgiving. So with that, I remember like almost getting to that point, like, no, I'm pretty sure I did cry on that day. It was like, why, this sucks, like, what am I gonna do, like, how am I gonna get over this, nobody wants to spend Thanksgiving with me, blah blah blah, life sucks. And then I remember this girl that was in a wheelchair was going across the street, like right on Pearl Street, which ironically I live on right now.
Okay.
It's weird. But it was weird because I don't think many people look like me, but she had like similar color hair and facial features, and she's in a wheelchair. And I just remember like, life sucks and this is hard, and what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? I was living with 4 guys at the time to try to pay my medical, just to make ends meet. But I remember as she was crossing the street, like the sun was like shining on her face and she was smiling, and it was like she's in a wheelchair, and like it just like that moment like was that point of, Leah, like stop and put this into perspective. Like 1, you're alive, 2, you can still walk, 3, like it doesn't really matter wherever it is, it's just like moving forward. Those are the important parts. And, you can look at something with a glass half full or half empty. It's all your choice of perspective and what you choose to look at it. And I'm thinking, she's in a wheelchair and she can still be smiling. I'm sitting here able to walk and crying because my boyfriend didn't want to spend Thanksgiving together. So I don't know. That gave me perspective, and it's interesting because I came across that girl a couple other times in my life, and I've always wanted to tell her, but I'm kind of like, how do you do that awkwardly?
Yeah, no, I hear it.
Huh. Wow.
So
Puts things in perspective.
It gives perspective. Even in a lot of the disaster relief that I've done with the Red Cross, I've done a lot as a health service volunteer doing national deployments with the American Red Cross. So if there's like hurricanes or floods, responding to some of that. And I remember like in taking people into like a shelter, or they're coming off this bus like after leaving some of the hurricane part, and having to evacuate their home, and being like, "Oh, I'm sorry to keep you waiting." And this lady was like, "Honey, I just got out with my little boy, and like we were leaving the house that was flooding." She's like, "If I have to sit here and wait, that is the least of my concerns." She's like, "I'm just glad to be alive." And it's like, yeah, that is perspective of like the things that really matter. In those kind of crisis moments, you really figure out the stuff that does matter. So that was that story.
Very cool.
You gotta ask me a question.
No. Well, we have lots of questions and topics, I guess. So, Joel I wasn't really familiar with obviously I'd met you before, and some of the reach that you have with spreading your message, and kind of what's the driving force behind that, or how have you been able to reach so many people?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that when I saw that on the list. I kind of like, I don't really know. I think it's a story that is unique, and it shows overcoming obstacles, perseverance. So part of my mission of You Go Girl, which is kind of like my motto, it's just encouraging others to overcome obstacles, break through barriers, and achieve their goals. So I did the Dancing with the Lacrosse Stars, and that was my team name, was You Go Girl, and that's like the mission, and I use that like in working with other people. So there's a lot of people that I've met along the way, and it's kind of some of that story that I share of, it's hard, like life can be hard sometimes in different things, but it's like, putting it into perspective of, this is a mountain, like you can still climb it, it's just one foot in front of the other, but, kind of breaking through the barriers and overcoming, I think has been motivating for some people, and so just trying to share that with others, I think, has been helpful. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff out there, just like modeling. Like if you want to be successful, go find a successful person and like model their behaviors. Like obviously something worked, and I'm sure that's part of what it comes back to is you overcome some things, so it shows that it's possible, and then it's just, I don't want to say a blueprint because everybody's got their own way to do it, but at least it gives some ideas.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
What is your involvement? You mentioned coaching. So what do you do with health coaching?
So I work as a nurse health coach. I contract with a company based out of Chicago called Interactive Health. And so they found me on the internet, and they were looking for somebody to do a pilot program. So I was a nurse health coach on site here in the Crosse area, which is kind of cool. I was like the nurse for a few different companies. So in the position there, I work. Don't blink out that. Okay. I know what I do as a nurse. Do you want the whole story of how I got started into being a nurse health coach, or just in nurse?
That sounds good too. Yeah, either way, either or works. Because were you a nurse? You don't have to.
No.
Whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, just how you got, because you were a nurse prior. Is that kind of what led you to becoming a nurse health coach, or?
So I think a lot of like my personal journey along with the education brought me to the nurse health coaching. Like I'm still a nurse. I still have my bachelor's in nursing. A lot of people are like, what hospital do you work at, or what clinic do you work at?
Right.
It's like, well, I do a different kind of nursing, which is interesting, and I really enjoy it, and it's part of what I've lived, so I feel like I find value in sharing that with other people. So I work with a company based out of Chicago doing nurse health coaching, and then I also do my own nurse health coaching on the side. So I do kind of two different jobs with that. So it's been fun in some of the travels that I've done across the United States, picking up clients that I've met along the way. So
Nice. I know you had referenced on here, like, trying to define what nurse health coaching is and, like, how it ties into the healthcare model. And I know we talk a lot about how the system is on its way to probably breaking, that it's just not going to be able to sustain, like, people being sick and trying to fix sick and not keep them healthy to begin with. So I got to imagine that what your role is trying to potentially come in on that front end and not be reactive on things, but being more proactive. But I could be completely wrong.
No,
but
you're totally spot on.
I had to assume that was kind of where it was going, which I think is awesome.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I remember back in college, which was like 10 years ago, and so life was a little bit different with our healthcare system back then, but I remember in my public health nursing rotation that there was a statistic of like 90% of our healthcare dollars goes to chronic disease management, and 10% of our healthcare dollars goes to prevention. And I remember just thinking at that time, like, that just doesn't make sense. Like, why, if we could prevent something and save the cost of the chronic stuff down the road, why would we want to focus on that? Well, in kind of like learning more about it, it makes sense to some extent, and it is a situation of if anybody can figure out the right answer, good luck. But I think it's a complicated situation to be in. I think, with a lot of the rising in healthcare costs, people need to take their own health into their own hands. So in living part of that story of having chronic conditions at a young age, decided to make some changes. And the thing with health coaching, I think that's interesting, is a lot of people will come to me and they'll be like, I know what I need to do. My doctor told me that I need to lower my cholesterol, I need to lose weight, I need to be more active, but I don't know how to do it. Like, how do I do this? I've tried and I can't do it, So it's interesting for me because I get to bring people from that point of, this is something you want to do, but how do you do it? And bringing them through that process of making those changes that they can sustain in a lifestyle. It's not just a diet, it's a lifestyle change that they can use in bettering their health and making changes in their health. And it's been fun, like some of the people that I've worked with over the years, to see the changes that they've made or the goals that they've accomplished. and it's really rewarding for me. I think that's why I continue to do my job, and why I've stuck with it for so long. So.
For sure.
That's very cool. So what are some of the things that you typically see from your clients? I get patients. What do you call them?
I call them clients.
Yeah. So what are the common things, or is it just totally random?
It's a bunch of everything. I've had stuff with back pain. I've had people with high A1Cs, so diabetes, a lot of diabetes, a lot of high cholesterol, a lot of obesity, like people that are not active. I've had people that want to set goals for being more active as far as starting to run their first 5K. I saw somebody, I've seen many people through their first 5K or their first half marathon, or just finishing, goals. And that's kind of where I always go back to is, what is your goal? Because I can tell you, your doctor, what you need to do, but what do you want to do? And usually when you bring it back to them, that's where it starts to bring ownership of, this is what I'm going to do. So.
What are some of your go-to principles with nutrition, or just because there's plenty out there,
Totally.
Everybody's got an opinion on it. But what are you, if you could pick some general guidelines that you typically come back to?
Pay the farmer and not the pharmacist is one of my favorite.
Nice. I like that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
So focusing on healthy foods and making sure that they're quality foods versus down the road needing to pay that money for the pharmacist. A lot of people will be like, well, it's expensive to eat healthy. I can't do it. And then you get people that are spending $400 or $500 a month on medications.
Right.
And it's kind of trying to put this into perspective. If we could prevent that, how much would you save down the road? But people don't really see that. I can see that from my point of, or from my spot. But people that are living it, it's different because they're so busy in their days and their their daily life of go.
And you don't see it instantly.
Yeah, and
you got to give it time, and it's hard to.
Yeah, and then they wake up and then trying to be whoa, well, I need to make some changes, but what do I do? How do I do it? So that's one I really steer away. Anything with high fructose corn syrup is kind of one thing that I go to. I was over in England and France last year, and it was crazy because high fructose corn syrup is one of the things that I cut out when I was making a lot of my changes, just being more conscious of consuming that. No, but high fructose corn syrup is one thing that I really try to steer people against. I thought it was interesting over in England and in France that I was looking at a lot of the nutrition labels and I couldn't find high fructose corn syrup in anything. And you look over here at a lot of our foods, it is in our chocolate milk, it's in our bread, our cereals, it's our ketchup, it's in everything, and it's an artificial sweetener to make things more sweet, but it isn't easy for our body to digest to use it, so it really throws our blood sugars up a lot higher versus natural sugar. So I usually tell people to kind of start looking and noticing the sugars in foods, but the reason why they don't have it over in Europe is because they don't allow it over there, which is interesting. So
there's so much stuff like that. Europe, most of the developed Asian countries have standards on so many things that the U.S. just doesn't. Not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to use the bulletproof guy. We'll talk about that with coffee. The stuff that gets rejected everywhere else just comes back to the States because we don't have the standards for those types of things, which is crazy. But
so when you look at that 90%, looking at the tail end, reactive to 10% proactive in your side of things, how are you helping to bridge that gap in healthcare? And I know you said that it's complicated, but how would you suggest we kind of flip that? Do you have any ideas on what could be done?
Yeah, well, really taking value of your own health and knowing that you need to put in the effort, that you can't just take a pill that's going to make it better. I have a lot of people that are well, I'm taking my medication, so my blood sugars are going to be good now because I'm taking my medication, but or they're on 3 different blood pressure medications. It's fine because I'm taking my blood pressure medication, which is good, but what other things can you do outside of the medication? Let's first look at the lifestyle changes of things that you can do so that you're not having to take those medications. or that maybe you don't even have to take those medications. And I've seen people come off of their medications after making changes,
Right.
which is
That's got to be the most rewarding thing ever to see some of those.
Yeah. So really starting to look at their lifestyle and their nutrition, their exercise, being more proactive in going back to kind of a simpler way of living. I feel like nowadays we are so busy with everything, and we try to. I can go off on a tangent kind of with that, but in that we don't really stop and take a look at some of the things that are important until it's too late. So remind me to tell you the story of being more. The story of being on the road for 50 days and living out of a bag on a motorcycle, because it really gave me perspective of the things that matter and don't. But so kind of like I think that it is important to focus more on the preventative side and helping people to realize that through making some changes in their own health, so that they're not having to have those chronic conditions down the road. Like our generation is going to be like the first generation that's going to not outlive our parents, which I think is interesting. If you look at the high rates of child obesity, you're just in childhood obesity or high rates of heart disease and cancers. There's just so many things that if you kind of be proactive, you can prevent down the road. And we're coming at this age where the baby boomers are going to be aging and then dying off, and who's going to really support our system? I think that we have to be proactive. That to think that we're not going to be affected by it is naive.
Yeah, we like to pass the buck down the road, I think, a lot. And like you said, it gets masked with all the medications, and couldn't agree more.
Yeah, but I'm taking my medicine. Well, yeah, but what if you didn't need to take your medicine?
Right.
What if, like, going for a walk once a day for 30 minutes and then eating some fruits and vegetables helped you to not have to take that medicine? Really?
And they'd feel so much better then, too.
And yeah, totally.
And we did the whole 30, modified. I did a modified version because I didn't jump all in, but, to like, going back to your high fructose corn syrup thing, just looking at nutrition labels, like it is hard to find nutrition labels on things that are like you would think natural without some sort of additive to it. Like bacon is impossible to find without anything added to it. Like you got to find, it's just incredible. Like bacon, of all things, and doing that, but then going back to your point on slowing down even, like now we're cooking like a sheet of Brussels sprouts and onions and potatoes and stuff like in the oven, but it's 40 minutes to cook. It's not throw it in the microwave for 4 and then it's done, and which it's fine. It tastes great when it's done, but it's just, it forced everything to slow down at home because you got to cut it all, and then you got to wait, and you got to figure out when to put in all your other stuff, and it's, I think it's been a plus.
It's interesting. A lot of times when I'm sharing some of my story, I'll often kind of highlight, even if I were to go back to that weight of being morbidly obese, I wouldn't change the way that I live now in the nutrition and the exercise, and this is kind of what you're touching on a little bit, is you feel so much better. And this is something that I'll often ask my clients is, but yeah, after I broke my back is why I started yoga, which totally was life-changing too, kind of with things. But to kind of go back to that, which we were talking before, what I tell my clients a lot is, so making some of the health changes and stuff, is I'll often will set a goal kind of what do you want to see change in your life, and I'll meet them kind of where they're at for their knowledge, and then give them information that will help them to achieve their goals and check in with them. But oftentimes I'll follow up with a question of, have you noticed any difference in how you feel? And a lot of times people will be like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm sleeping better, I have more energy, I have clearer thought process, I'm not as angry and stuff anymore, I'm more energetic. There's so many different things that we don't really put a value on until, I know that I even thought that until, I was even thinking that too in my own life. Like, I didn't think about it until somebody asked me about how much differently feel now. So if I were to go back to the way I was 7 years ago and being overweight, I would do that, but I wouldn't want to change the way that I live in nutrition or exercise kind of things because I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So the point kind of with that is those are the things that we don't really think of. A lot of times people will be like, oh, it's the scale, the weight on the scale, like, oh, I lost 5 pounds, but do you feel good? Do you not feel good? Like, how are you sleeping at night? Like, there's so
All
many
the intangibles.
other things that we don't really put a dollar price on, and it's quality of life. So there's a lot to be said in the quality of life that you can achieve through living a healthy lifestyle, an active lifestyle, focusing on good nutrition, getting good rest, staying hydrated. All these things are like the things that you're supposed to do, but like a lot of us are too busy to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
We're too busy to, we have to work our insane jobs to pay for our high technology kind of phones or TVs or cars or big house, and then it's like, but then we really lose sight of like the things that matter of having that time to go for a walk or getting the good night's sleep or spending time with your family, which will decrease stress and also helps with health conditions. So, does that make sense?
That makes a lot
It
of
all
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all good points that it just has to keep being reinforced.
Yeah.
It seems like.
A lot of that reminds me of the 4-hour work week.
Oh.
Familiar with that? Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
Just not burning yourself out working this job or this place that's super fancy. Everything you just said. Yeah.
Well, and I remember that. Like, I lived that. I was working 3 jobs at the same time as I was going through college for nursing school. Like,
Yeah.
who had time for 10 minutes to go for a walk? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't have time for that. It was just putting things into perspective on what's important. And it's not, if it doesn't affect you now, it will affect you down the road. So kind of being more preventative. Healthcare costs are just insane. They're only going to continue to go up.
Right.
So being as preventative as you can in the forefront so that you're not have to be reactive down the road. There's so many people that I've even worked with that have ended up in the hospital with heart attacks or strokes. And, it's that really makes them make their change. It isn't until that crisis situation that they start to make those changes because they have to. Well, what if you could prevent that and like not having to go through all that, or what if you could put that off, delay it? There's so much to be said for quality of life. Like if you're on oxygen and having to check your blood sugars all the time, and having to give yourself insulin shots, there's taking medications. Cut that out. There's a lot to be said for the quality of life. So, I was in that accident back in 2010. And a lot of people are like, well, why did you do all this traveling and stuff since? It's like, well, I know that, the back pain is probably going to come down the road. Why not go experience life a little bit more now? When I get older, like, I'll probably be in a lot more pain versus and waiting to go and travel then. Like, you might not ever get that opportunity. So doing some of that now, I think has been fun to be able to balance, career and then also traveling.
So with that being said, what's the story about the 56-day living out of a suitcase?
So I did take my motorcycle around the country. I traveled and we did 10,000 miles. I bought this new motorcycle, and I've been riding for a few years. I've been riding 5 years before that, so I knew how to ride, but I got a new bike and I was super excited. I took it out for a tour around the United States for 10,000 miles and lived out of this bag for 50 days, like on the back of my motorcycle. And I remember coming back and doing laundry the first time at home. I did laundry in between that.
No judgment.
Right, yeah.
Well, there's so many things that I did on that tour. But I came back and I did laundry, and I was washing my clothes and was going to go hang them up in my closet. And I remember looking at these things that I had lived with, very minimal things that you need, and going to go hang those things up in the closet and being like, oh, way too much stuff. Like, I don't need half of this stuff. Like, got rid of this, got rid of that, the shirts. Like, I got rid of like half of my closet of stuff, and it's like it gave me perspective of like I really don't need all that stuff. I don't use half of it anyways.
Right,
like,
sure.
And being on the motorcycle, you have to really be selective of the things that you do use. You know, like a couple pairs of jeans, running shoes, work stuff, rain gear, my tent.
Yeah.
A lot of things that like you need. You can't go without, but like you can't really bring along your journal, or you can't really bring along those high heel kind of shoes. What are you going to use them for? They're not practical. Get rid of them.
Right, yeah.
You know, the hair straightener or hair blow dryer, like you don't have room for that. Like just using the stuff or bringing the stuff that you really need. And so it really gave me perspective, because a lot of times I didn't have all the things that I would have liked to maybe have, but I found in the times that I've like, oh, like it'd be nice to have that. I really didn't need it, or I found another way kind of around some of that. So that gave me perspective of living out of the bag and just really being kind of more minimalist, and like you really don't need a lot of it. And I was happier with having less.
It's kind of nice to have not have to have the option of even deciding or choosing. It's like, oh, it's not even.
I've heard that from a bunch of people. Like, you just end up purging so many things, and you just do better. Like, life's better. So I try to do that like every month now. Just, oh, I haven't seen this in a while. Nor am I ever going to use it.
Harrison talked about the guy we did a podcast with.
30 days.
30 days. So the first day he got rid of one thing, second day 2, and by the end of it he had to get rid of 30 things.
Oh, wow.
Day. So he got rid of a lot of stuff over the course of that month, and he was saying how much happier he was and lighter. You know. Yeah.
Well, and it was weird because before I even left on that tour, like I had lived in a house for 8 years and then moved to like a condo for a few months and then moved to an apartment. So in that process, I already got rid of like half of my stuff to go into this apartment. And I just, after that, like coming back and just being like, the things that I really needed, I don't even know the last time I wore that or used that. Like, got rid of so many other things, and there's something that's really freeing in not having to have all those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just living more minimal. So people are always kind of like I haven't owned a TV in like 3.5 years. People are like, "What are you, Amish? Like, why do you? Like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have a TV?" It's like, I don't know. Like, one, like, I don't really have time to sit down and watch TV. Like, I did have a TV, and I never sat down and watched it. Like, I was doing other things. You know, some of the training for the marathons and the health coaching. I was doing and busy with work, volunteering. There's touching base with friends and family. Like, there's a lot of things you can do, but now I don't even like miss the TV. Like, I don't even think that I can remember that they exist sometimes, unless people are like, "Did you see that on TV?"
I haven't purged TV, but got rid of cable and just the savings that you don't have with paying the cable bill every month. I still have some of the streaming things, but even then, I just find myself not sitting down to like flip on whatever it may be, or if I'm going to watch something, it's something I actually really want to watch, not just mindlessly.
I feel like a lot of what is
watching
total garbage.
Law and Order reruns or something, just because you had some time to kill, and then all of a sudden 6 hours later you're like, oh, I should probably do something. But yeah, I hear you on that one. So
what is your clientele? I see that's a question on here. So where do they, I know you kind of mentioned you meet people various ways or whatever, but how?
I don't know, like, it's weird, but like a lot of my stuff has been more word of mouth through people. Like, you know, a lot of people have interviewed me for certain things, or my story's been shared. I share my own story, or I travel, and then people ask me questions about some of it when I'm sharing some of my story. And so it's just kind of through that I've had people interested in it, and it's more of like, it's a passion of mine to be helping other people, and so kind of just sharing that and helping other people. So I do my own nurse health coaching, and I've partnered with a registered dietitian recently in the area, which is fun and exciting as health coaches. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes here in the local area. If you're not doing anything tonight, we'll be at the Boot Hill Pub giving a little bit of a presentation on women's health from 7 to 8. So I mean, you're welcome to come check it out. It's just health coaches, you know, and people sharing health in the community with people. So
Awesome.
yeah. So the clientele, to answer kind of that, is really anybody. I have people that really have a lot of chronic conditions. I have people that are just looking to achieve, you know, run their first marathon or run a 5K. I have people that want to lower their blood sugars or go up the stairs without being winded. Like, there's different things. It's really anybody. So it's not somebody that's a specific a demographic or anything.
Right.
So do you have to meet with them in person, or do you do some stuff via long distance type things as well?
And that's it. A lot of people are like, how can you travel around the country on your motorcycle? Do you not have a job? Do you know how hard it is to ride around the country, figure out what the weather's going to do, still keep up with your work, and figure out where you're going and get all your stuff packed on your bag, on your bike? But the beauty of some of the health coaching, which I'm excited things had changed, because initially I was on site, like face-to-face with clients, and now I work remote, so I work over the phone with a lot of people. So most of my stuff is done over the phone with clients around the United States. So that's interesting, because I can do that from here, I can do that from California, Paris, South Carolina. Like, I've been able to travel because of that. So I work from my computer, and it's interesting with being more over the phone, but it's hard too sometimes because you don't get that face-to-face interaction. I can't show them the photograph or like objects, but you adjust to it, and then it's nice because there's a lot with technology now that you can do. Some people do Skype and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's interesting to see, and it's more easy for people to do. Like, I'm able to be more effective in my job on the phone. I have a lot of people that are driving, they're stuck in traffic, you know, or work, on their way to work or on their way home from work for an hour. They have a drive. Well, they wouldn't necessarily be able to meet with me face to face if they were, you know, they had to come. They wouldn't have time to meet with me one-on-one face-to-face for a half hour. But in that car, when they're waiting and stuff, they're driving, then I can take, or they can take the phone call. And then
For sure.
Most productive drive ever for them.
Totally.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's my biggest thing. I couldn't live in a big city. I couldn't deal with traffic. I'd get so mad. I'm just not patient enough for
I
it.
think you would. After driving with you, I could see you getting pretty mad.
I like just getting to where I need to be and moving on with my life.
I hear you. I can relate. I get frustrated when I have to like stop at the red light because there's like 2 lights between where I live and where I work, and you know, I can get that red light. It's just like, it's all perspective, right?
Yeah. Well, the company that I work with is based out of Chicago, so Interactive Health is based out of Chicago. So I remember having to go out there and do a lot of the training for what they want for their companies. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, like, people would come in and be like, I'm stuck in traffic for an hour, or, you know, I have to go home, and like all I gotta do was, you know, make dinner, go to bed. And it's like, I work from my computer, which is kind of nice that I can go for a run down by the river and come back, make breakfast and eat breakfast, and still have like a half hour to spare while they're sitting in traffic and waiting. So it's kind of like, even knowing the knowing the situation, like, how can you change? What can you do to make a change so that something changes? If you want to make a change in having more time for those things, like, what can you do to make that change? So I remember when I made that move over to lacrosse, that it was nice that I had more of that time to do that versus being, you know, in Chicago and being stuck in traffic and mad, and I don't know. It's just it's perspective, but there's a lot of things out in Chicago too that are kind of cool and fun.
Yeah. Plus, for an hour, think how many podcasts you could listen to.
Well done. If you're not talking to Leah on the phone, you should be listening to a podcast. We happen to know a couple guys that have one.
So with all your travels, I got to ask, where is your favorite place that you've been?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous that you weren't actually here, because I saw a couple posts and you had like from Paris, and it says in Paris, friends. I was like, wait a second, we're supposed to meet tomorrow. I don't know if she's in Paris or not. But I was like, no, she seemed like she was ready to go. So make sure it wasn't like Paris, Wisconsin, if there's such a place. I don't know, but
I think that there is.
is there? I know. Yeah. Anyhow. Yes, favorite place.
Favorite place, gosh, it's hard, and there's different places that are unique in their own selves or their own uniqueness. I really enjoyed being in Colorado when I was down in Colorado and riding through the Rocky Mountains. That is a whole new level of riding. I love the beaches in the Carolinas. Like, that's gorgeous.
I've heard good things. Haven't been, but I've heard good things.
Yeah. I love the Carolinas. And then I usually will get a question too, like, where's one place that you're really surprised by that you didn't really, you were surprised in going there? And I would say Idaho was a place that I was really surprised. Like, Idaho. I remember telling my dad that, and he's like, "What's in Idaho? What, potatoes?"
Yeah.
Like,
Stereotypes.
no, it was actually really cool. There was a lot of like really pretty rivers. Went whitewater kayaking, and that was a lot of fun on some like class 2, 3 rapid things.
Oh, there you go.
Flipped
Wow.
the inflatable kayak.
Wow.
But it was really pretty. The area was just beautiful. Montana was gorgeous. Going up to a glacier, like, I didn't know places like that existed until going there. Utah was very beautiful with having like Zion, and Bryce's Canyon, the Arches National Park. It's just like all those places are unique in and of themselves. But it's really hard to put one favorite. But just I like being out in nature. So I think that somewhere like that is cool.
Nice. What else do you want to cover? I feel like we've hit a bunch. You're looking at all of them, so.
What got you into motorcycles? Have you always been into motorcycles?
No, I first started riding a motorcycle 7 years ago when I was making some of those changes of like bucket list goals. So learn to ride a motorcycle is second on
nice.
that list. And I was inspired to ride a motorcycle first from a woman that's like a faith mentor to me, and she had turned 50, and so she was going to learn to ride a motorcycle for her 50th birthday, and I was like, what? Wanda, women don't ride motorcycles. What are you thinking? You could get hurt. That's crazy. And then she took this ride safe class, and I remember her coming back after these ride safe classes and just being like, that was awesome. That was so cool. That was so much fun. Like, I learned so much, and being like, I wonder if I could learn to ride a motorcycle. I don't know, but it'd be cool to try. So it's just that thought of maybe, and then the next step of doing something. So I signed up to take that ride safe class later on that year and learn to ride a motorcycle. Holy buckets! It was crazy. So I passed, which was interesting, and I've had a few different bikes since that time. So it is just something like in riding a motorcycle, I have a lot of people that I'll ask kind of, why would you want to ride a motorcycle? It's like, well, there's a lot of like really cool things, in riding a motorcycle. So to answer the question on how did I get started, that's kind of what motivated me to try, because I literally had never gotten on a bike before that. Learning to ride a motorcycle was not something I would see myself, back 10 years ago even thinking of wanting to do. But I really enjoyed it. Like, I like being out on the road, open road, the wind in your face. It's just, you don't have all the distractions of cars and everything, or the radio, or it's just you and the motorcycle on the road. So I first started in 2010, and then was in the accident later on that year, broke my back and punctured my lung. Took time to rehab, 2011. Then later on that year, in 2011, I started running again. 2012, remember that first 5K that I did?
Mm-hmm.
In 2012, I did that 5K again, and then I ended up placing first in my age group in that race for my age group, which was kind of like, that meant a lot to me, because a few years back, like, I was just praying to finish the thing.
Yeah. And
then knowing that I broke my back and how hard that was, like, that really meant a lot to me.
Crazy.
Yeah, so the first time I finished the first half marathon, I got back on the motorcycle and started riding again, because the accident in 2010 kind of scared me, and maybe I shouldn't ride again, and I was almost ready to give it up. And then after I finished that first half marathon, that same day I got back on the motorcycle and started riding again. Later on that year, I went out to Sturgis, South Dakota on my 650 Suzuki Boulevard with no windshield or no saddlebags. 700 miles up to Sturgis. Wow. Looking back at it, like I was like, what was I thinking? I got out there and people, I've done that trip on that bike like 3 different times, but I got out there the first time and people were like, you rode that out here? Like, by yourself? Like, yeah, like, doesn't everybody do that? Like, bunch of strapped their stuff down to their motorcycle,
That's
not
awesome.
have a windshield. And now that I have the Indian Scout, it's interesting because I actually have saddlebags and I have a windshield, and now I know why people were laughing at me. It's like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, it does make a huge difference.
Can imagine.
I can't. That's crazy.
Just people's reactions. And on the road out to through I-90 in South Dakota, there's a lot of high winds and there's not much for trees, so on a light bike, you're already being thrown around because of that, but then having those winds and passing semis and stuff on the way is like, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Just an adrenaline junkie.
Well, I mean, now I would not. I'd ride the Indian Scout.
Sure.
But.
So what's the, so you did your first marathon when you were 26 years old, 26 miles, and you actually did it on May 26th.
Yeah,
that worked
crazy.
out like that? That was unbelievable.
Yeah, totally. It was weird because it was up in Rochester, the Med City Marathon.
Yep.
A friend had recommended. Have you guys been?
I'm from Rochester.
Oh.
I've never been in it, but known of people who have.
Yeah. So I was just looking for ones to do, and I was planning to do the fitness festival one, but they stopped that year. They stopped doing the marathon for it. They used to have a marathon for the fitness festival, and I was like, no, you can't do that because this is the year that I was going to run a marathon. And then it actually ended up working out perfect because then it ended up being on May 26th. Yeah. I was like, well, that's kind of cool.
That is.
So 26 years old, set out to do that 26 miles on May 26th. And finished, and it ran the whole thing, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think that I would ever.
That's a long ways.
Totally, yeah. And then 6 days later, after that, ran my second marathon out in Boston on the Boston Marathon course with a group from DC to Boston to raise money for the Boston bombing.
Crazy. So
that was that was the same year that the Boston bombing had happened. So 2 marathons in 1 week was kind of
I was going to say, was that pretty hard on the body?
Well, in perspective, like, it was a challenge for me. I don't think I would recommend anybody to just do that your first time. Like, but the group of people that were running had ran from DC, Washington, DC, out to Boston. Frank had raised money for some of the Boston bombing, and he said that he wasn't just going to deliver it to them, he was going to hand deliver it through running up to DC. So he remembered me from when I was out in Washington, DC, and asked if I'd come join them and help crew the run. So I went out to Boston and met up with them, and then ran that marathon, which was kind of cool to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And the money went to Jeff Bowman, who he was the one that identified the Boston fauna.
Oh.
And then the Martin Richards, the little boy that had passed away. So that's a whole other story in and of itself of how I came across Frank to ending up and running the Boston Marathon there. To the people that I helped kind of through that, and interesting. So that's a long story.
What's the Alabama one with the Hungarian chemist? That just picked my interest.
So this was the one right before I met you, Joel.
Right.
This
is the one where you were vomiting in the course?
Yes. And I didn't think, I've never hit the wall. I hit the wall on that course, but I had ran a marathon down in Alabama and had eaten too late before the run, which was the important thing I learned. If you don't have time, or don't eat anything before the marathon, give yourself time. I had eaten and literally went to go run. My car had been towed, so I was trying to figure that out. I needed my car to get back to Louisiana to fly back for work, and they had towed the car, so I was trying to make sure that I would have a car to get back for work, and ended up still making the run, but I was like, well, I need to grab something quick to eat. So I ate, I don't know, some Cheerios and stuff, and it didn't settle very well. Like mile 13, like I was doing good like at the start, but like mile 13, then I was like, oh, my stomach's starting to hurt. Like at mile 16, like, oh, it's really starting to hurt. Like there was hills from like mile 10 to mile 18 where like Alabama had just stupid hills. Like they were not. I should have really looked at the course a little bit more, but they had a lot of hills in that one. So I was coming up the last hill on mile 18, and then finally, like was getting it, and I've never stopped in a marathon to walk. I was like, oh. I ended up stopping. I puked. I was like, I felt so much better.
I bet you did.
Yeah, and it was right at the top of that hill that there's a guy that lived down in Alabama that just lived up on top of the hill that was cheering on the runners, and he used to be a big ultra marathon runner back in the day. And so he's like, come on, honey, you can do it, keep going. And so he's cheering me on. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is weird, because usually I'm that person like, yeah, you can do it. Yeah, you got it. But he starts running with me, and he's 70 years old. He starts running with me. Not only like a mile, 2 miles, he finished the marathon with me. It's kind of like Forrest Gump. Have you ever seen the movie Forrest Gump?
They all just
running with you, yeah. So this guy that's 70 years old, I'm like jogging. I'm like, I can't even like really talk right now, but he's talking to me in this Hungarian accent, and he's some chemist that injects young lab rat blood into older lab rats, and they're younger. Like I'm trying to like, is this really happening right now?
Like delirious right now.
Well, that was a whole experience in and of itself, but. After that, it was, I finished in the marathon, finding out that my car, like I'd have to find a way to get back to my car that had been towed, having to pay $200, $250 for the car to be towed. I only carry $50 of cash with me, or totally ruined that. So after that marathon, it was kind of off the subject, whatever. Like it was interesting. That was one of like a hard time. Like I could barely even talk. Like I was like, it definitely. I had hit the wall, and I've never hit the wall before. But I went back to the hotel to try to see if they had gotten the car back, because it was towed and it shouldn't have been towed. But coming back, they said, yeah, don't worry about it, we'll get it back, and they didn't. And there was a new guy there at the front desk that was like, oh, sorry, it's kind of your problem. Here's the number for the towing company. Call the towing company. And they're like, yeah, we have the rental car. Like we're located a half hour outside of Mobile, Alabama, and we're only open today from the hours of 2 to 4. And like it was like 1 o'clock or whatever at that time. I'm like, so I need to find a ride half hour away outside of Mobile, Alabama to come get this car and pay you $250 cash. Right. I don't know anybody down here except for Hungarian chemists. Right. Like this is definitely going to be hard. So that was an interesting experience, because I didn't really know what I was going to do. And that's a lot of money for the car to be towed. But I ended up having $50 of cash in my purse, which I don't usually ever carry cash like that. Took out $200 from the ATM, which that is the only thing that, like, when my bank only allows me to take $200 out in case it ever gets stolen. So I was like, holy, talk about cutting it.
Stars aligning.
Yeah, and then getting a ride there right before it closed. I'm like, I'm never so glad to leave Mobile or And then a couple of weeks later, I got a package in the mail. It said Mobile, Alabama on it. I was like, Mobile, Alabama. Like, what is in Mobile? Like, I don't ever want to hear the words Mobile, Alabama again. And I'm thinking, was it the hotel that was really rude? Was it the towing company? Like, why am I getting a package? And I opened it, and it was my award for getting second in my age division on that marathon.
No kidding.
Totally. I didn't even know. And I usually always stop and wait to cheer people on after the run. Like, it's kind of my thing to cheer people on. And I didn't, because I was worried about my car, and I felt like really sick, or I didn't feel very well, and so I didn't even stay for the awards. And I was like, no way. And so Hungarian chemist gave me his name and number, and him and his wife were really, really nice. But I'm like, no way, I placed in that one. And so that's just a memorable marathon of any.
I could understand that.
So what are your checkoffs on your bucket list that you're most proud of, and what's on your bucket list that you're like going after? Maybe like what are your top priorities, or maybe what are some of the most difficult that you're going to be able to achieve?
Ooh, good question. So ones that I've achieved in the past, running a marathon, I actually checked that off on May 1st of 2010, thinking that a 5K was a marathon. Didn't really know. Learning to ride.
Sure, check.
Yeah, well, and then actually went back and actually had the marathon where I could check it off. Running the Boston Marathon, running a full marathon, and I did it on May 26th,
Nice.
which is crazy. Going skydiving, that was one that was interesting. Going skydiving, learning about Gandhi, moving to a new place, being my ideal weight. I remember thinking back at that point, when I was 225 pounds and being like, that BMI, have you ever seen the BMI where it's like
31 and a half.
This is what you should be? Yeah, a lot of guys are like, well, it tells me that I'm fat. Like, this isn't me.
Yeah.
Many an argument with a nurse.
Let's do a body percent fat thing. And let's look at the bigger picture. You have a lot of muscle. Are you eating your fruits and vegetables? Are you being active?
Right.
The big picture is what really matters. But I remember being at that point where I was in that morbid obesity category and thinking, stupid skinny people, what do they know about life? 145 pounds, that's not ever going to be possible. That's just ridiculous. And that was literally, I never thought that I would be where I am now. I remember thinking, just to even be able to run up the stairs and not be winded would be, huge. I didn't think that I'd ever really be able to see my feet again. There's just so many things that, thinking back to that time, it's a whole other life ago. So that one really meant a lot. Doing a pull-up after breaking my back. Or I couldn't really pull up my pants.
Right.
That was an interesting one. Doing some traveling, going out to DC, seeing the Holocaust Museum, riding my motorcycle to Sturgis. I did that by myself, and I was just like, I wonder if I could ride all the way out to Sturgis. And then I was like, well, just went, halfway, got to St. Paul's, and I was like, okay, I made it, and I'm still okay. I wonder if I can go the rest of the way. So when I did the 10,000 mile tour, first I wasn't planning to do 10,000 miles. I had just planned to go down to Colorado because I was in a wedding down in Vail, and I was like, okay, so I could drive down or I could ride a motorcycle down. Which one? I wonder if I could ride a motorcycle all the way to Colorado. That seems really far. I don't know if I could do that. But I mailed the dress down and then got that new motorcycle, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I kind of just got to go slow, and, I made it down there, and then once I got down there, I'm like, well, I'm already this far. It'd be cool to do the $1 Million Highway. And then, well, I'm this far. Go see the Grand Canyon, and I'm working from my computer, so as long as I'm able to still get my work done, it didn't really matter if I was on the road or here in La Crosse doing my work. So saw the Grand Canyon, and my goal was to get to all 50 states. So I'm like, well, California, Nevada, are right there. Went over to California, Nevada, up to Oregon, Washington, Idaho. So I hit all the western states on the motorcycle. It was all over the West Coast.
Nice.
So the one that I'm currently working on is to get to all 50 states. My goal is to watch the sun rise or set in each of the states. So Alaska is my last state to get to. So I'm looking on taking a road trip pretty soon, which I was hoping would be tomorrow, but it's gonna be a little bit down. I have a few things. I want to get the website up and everything.
For sure.
And I just have a lot of stuff with work for now. But Alaska is my last state, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to run a 5K. So I'll be 31 on June 18th, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a 3.1 mile run in my last state, which would be Alaska, on my birthday. So it's an idea. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it'd be kind of cool to go see Alaska.
Sure,
The states.
absolutely.
But yeah, so my goal is just to get to all 50 of the states and watch the sunrise or set. But because it doesn't really count if you like drive through the state. Like the New England states are kind of like you can get 10 of them in a day.
Yeah.
So watching,
You actually spend some quality time.
yeah, and a sunrise or sunset is actually like super amazing to watch. Like I'd rather watch that than watching TV. You know, like
Right.
it's interesting. But the why that one was like an important one to me is I grew up in a small town. I'd never really been outside of Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Iowa. So 3 states when I was like sophomore in college is kind of like I remember going out to Chicago for my first time for a school trip and being like, whoa, there's like a whole other world of culture out there. Like, wow, this is crazy. And it just like that kind of motivated me to be like, well, what else is out there? Like, what other things? And after I graduated, I did a lot of volunteer work with the Red Cross, did national deployments to the New England states and then down to Louisiana, and then met people from all over the country with that. And so just traveling was kind of a big goal for me just because that's something that was something I didn't really do much growing up, but like it's always interesting for me to see other cultures, other people's way of living, just meeting new people. I'm the person that you do not want to be next to you on a plane if you're trying to sleep.
Fair enough.
That's how you meet all your people, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. Well, and then when I was out on the motorcycle and touring, there's a lot of people that would come up at the gas stations and, are you riding by yourself? Yeah. me and Scout are riding. Who's Scout? It's my motorcycle. So I actually named my motorcycle people. That's kind of
That's hilarious.
but yeah, so it was kind of crazy just to be out on that. But coming back, there was something that was really like huge. Like I left thinking, like, I wonder if I could ride all the way down to Colorado, and then coming back, thinking like I just came back after touring all the western states. I had gone to a wilderness medicine conference out in Montana. I hit the 75th anniversary of Sturgis on the way back, which was weird timing wise for the things, but I was just kind of like, I think I can do it. I wonder if I can actually do it. And I had actually gone all the way down to California and came back through Utah or Colorado. I was almost into Nebraska, and I was gonna head home. And I remember like praying about it. I'm like, I don't know if I should what if I never get the chance to do this again? Like maybe I should just go do that wilderness medicine conference in Montana in a couple weeks. Like it doesn't make sense to go all the way back home and then try to go all the way back out. But if I stay out, like I could go hit Oregon, Washington, Idaho, which was it was cool. But I ended up turning back after being like halfway back home and staying out on the road trip for the 50 days and 10,000 miles. And yeah, it was interesting. I met some really amazing people, so that was cool.
I can imagine.
Should we get into the questions?
Probably.
Yeah.
Computer's starting to get on its last legs for
All right.
recording power. So,
Well, let's start right off with, in your field, what is something that you do to make complicated simple?
I usually get to the why with a lot of my clients of why are you doing this? Like, what is the reason of wanting to make health goals? And usually when you bring that into perspective of why they're doing it, they take ownership of why wanting to reach those goals. So I think if you have a good why, you can always go back to that in using it with the clients of, when you get those people when people often they'll be motivated and starting to make changes in their health initially, and then they'll kind of fall off that pattern for a little bit. So having somebody to check in with them and then going back to that why. Well, why are you doing this? I remember for me it was because I wanted to make changes for my health with the chronic conditions that I already had at a young age. So I think going back to the why is the thing to make it kind of simple.
a good one. I've heard that with a lot.
Yep.
It's a good message.
I like it.
For sure. What is something that you believe in that others may not, or for one of our former guests, a small group of people might believe, just to not make it completely, and it doesn't have to be health related.
Shoot, which one was that?
First one.
What is? Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry. So, what is something you believe that others may not? That one. We kind of touched base on this already, but less is more. Quantity versus quality. I really think that if you focus on having less, there's more in that. So, whether it be consuming less for food or whatever, having quality food is more important than having the quantity of food, or in just like tangible objects, even having less of that. Like I feel like that's actually given me more in my own life. So
That's a good one. I don't know if you've had that one yet. I like that.
But I do like it, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to tell you the motorcycle story at that one, but we already told it.
Oh. Yeah, there you go.
So do you have I guess I'll go in order here. So the next one, 3 take-home tips that you have? Or do you have an ask for the audience? Like ask that they do something or not do something?
Well, so the take-home, I would say some of the things are focus on paying the farmer and not the pharmacist, kind of using that as a motto, like in not having to, or the reasons of why you're trying to do something. Okay, totally cut that one off. I'm gonna take a break for a second.
Sure.
When I get nervous, I start to ramble. Totally.
You're good.
The smell's not helping.
No.
The pizza?
It smells like it. Hot Pockets.
So some 3 take-home tips that I kind of live by are life begins outside of your comfort zone. I remember having multiple times being like, oh, I'm scared to try, but like, I wonder if I could ever do that. I'm not sure. But really, that's where the living starts, is when you're uncomfortable in things, and I've used that a lot in my marathon training. I've used that in just health changes and working like hard in different things, traveling around the country. So I think those are kind of some of those things that, like, if you go back to life begins outside the comfort zone, taking that a little bit of a risk, but not like an unsafe risk is good. You're stronger than you think you are. I remember a lot of times being like, I don't know if I could do it, but I wonder if I can try. And just taking those first steps and looking to role models, like you were saying before, to achieve some of your goals. And asking the audience. So a lot of people will be like, why do you want to do this? Like, why would you want to go travel around the country on a motorcycle? Why would you want to fly into a hurricane? Why would you want to run a marathon? And a lot of times, like, I was like, oh, I was really kind of discouraged by it. Like, is there something I'm doing wrong? Like, but a lot of, or now, like, I go back to, well, why not? Like, why not do something? I think that going to the why not is, why not try something? It can be life-changing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Couldn't agree with that. No,
I think you live that motto, it sounds like, too. I mean, it's not like you just say it. It sounds like you actually do it.
Yeah.
I've heard from a lot of people, too, you gotta do something that scares you each day, or, like, fear setting, like, figure out, like, where your level is, and then oftentimes you'll find out you built it up so much more in your head than what actually is the result that will occur, that you just gotta do it sometimes, so.
Yeah, Martin Luther King says, take that first step in faith. You may not see the whole staircase, what the end goal is, but just take that first step, like, in faith. Like, you don't really know where you're going to end up, just take that first step.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting quote back in the day. It's made the quote book.
There you go.
I like that. What's the most influential purchase you have for $100 or less?
My first pair of running shoes, I would say, was one of the most influential purchases, or a heart rate monitor. Those come in really handy, especially in long distance training. So,
And a quote book.
Yeah. With a bucket list.
Yeah,
There you go. There you go.
Nice.
You can make your own.
Book recommendations.
Michael Pollan, the Food Rules. Have you ever heard of Michael Pollan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I read of his? Oh yeah, the omnivore's dilemma.
It's
That's his stuff, right?
Yeah, he does like the food rules or in the defense of food, and basically it kind of goes back to eating whole foods in the natural form. If your grandma wouldn't keep it in her pantry, then don't eat it. If you can't pronounce the name of words of the foods that you're eating, then don't eat it. Just very basic, simple things. So I've used that with some of the clients in health coaching on, well, how do you eat healthy? And I could give you a list of, well, eat this food, and this food at this time at that day, and like, who wants to do that? That's not really like, it's a good general guide, but then you get stressed on being like, well, I didn't eat my egg whites and my spinach, and I didn't really like that to begin with, but like,
Right.
So people, you can give them a diet plan, but teaching them kind of like the choices on whole foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, eating good protein, limiting fats and stuff like that. I think that Michael Pollan does a good job in kind of bringing that back to our day and age in life reality.
Simplifying it.
Yeah.
What information would you tell yourself if you could go back 10 years? So I know you said 7 years is kind of like that, the time you had to change. So if you could go 3 years past that, what would you say?
What would I say to myself back then? Like, you're stronger than you think you are. Like, hold on, life is going to take you for a curve, but you're going to make it through. You got it. Good luck. And yeah, just stay strong in it. Because at that time, like, I never would have thought that, I was in nursing school, working 3 jobs and going to school full time. Didn't have time for 10 minutes a day of walking. I never would have thought at that time that I'd be traveling the country on a motorcycle, running marathons, dancing with the stars dancing with the lacrosse stars on the stage, flying into hurricanes. It's kind of like that would not have ever crossed my mind. So, yeah, I would say, you go, girl. Good luck, and you got it.
There you go. I like it a lot.
Anything in closing? Where can people find you? Besides Alaska.
Sometime in the next month, yeah.
So I have a website, www.ridingwithleah.com. So people can follow me on the journey there, and it'll have some of my updates of where I'm at and how I'm doing. I have some posts or some fun things to come with that. So check out the Riding with Leah. Otherwise, if people are looking for health coaching, I do have a website, www.coachwithleah.com. So people can reach me there if they're looking to learn more about health coaching or to engage in some other health coaching.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Or you can find me on Facebook along with the other 5,000.
Yeah,
there you go.
Better get to you soon, though, before you max out.
Yeah,
I've got a little into the country of India, so maybe we can get a couple of those, and they can invite you over too. Since they're well round you out, since you said you had all over the world.
Yeah,
It's
just crazy to, like, how did they come across my name? Like, somebody from New Zealand was like, yeah, I read about your story in the Indian Motorcycle magazine. Like, it made it all the way down to New Zealand.
There you go.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Thanks for taking the time.
That was
Yeah,
good. Thank
totally.
you.
Didn't make sense of any of that. Good.
It'll be perfect. It'll
Thanks
be
for
good.
listening to the gibberish.
A lot of good
It's good
stories.
to hear. Yeah, I liked it.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Clinically Pressed. Go to clinicallypressed.com for full show notes and links to everything that we covered in this episode. While you're there, you'll have full access to all our episodes, insights, and shorts. You can find Clinically Pressed on YouTube or any podcast outlet that you use. If you could give us a rating, thumbs up, or a review on how we're doing, we would greatly appreciate it and heard it helps out quite a bit. To get more free content delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for the Total Athletic Therapy newsletter at totalathletictherapy.com or clinicallypressed.com. You'll get direct links to all the new Clinically Pressed episodes, reviews on some of the latest research in health and performance, and links to related podcasts and other items meant to help you make the complicated simple and optimize performance. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.
All right. Well, ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm gonna I have some notes. Yes, I am ready.
All right. You good?
I'm good.
All right.
How about you introduct?
So, is that a word?
Introduct?
Introduct?
It is now.
It is now, yeah. There we go.
Isn't that where introduce came from? Introduct?
Yeah, but I just thought it was introduced. I think you just made a new tense of the word. We need a blooper reel section. We didn't have any out on the farm, which I thought was surprising.
Except when the cow was trying to lick your crotch.
Yeah, that is true. I had a cow getting real personal. It was all right. We made it through. I'm glad you got that all on video.